We have these adaptations that we developed over millions of years to always try and be comfortable, because in our past environments, those drives used to keep us alive. But now that we've engineered this world of just constant comfort, they're backfiring. And you can see the downsides of this. Having too much comfort or being overly comfortable too often, it's associated with, our rising rates of obesity and people being overweight. Those are like 70% now. It's associated with poor mental health outcomes. People today are spending like 95% of their time indoors. The average step count is around 4,000 steps a day. And this is radically different than we used to live. And it explains a lot of why people aren't as healthy as they used to be.
Welcome to the Spartan Up podcast with Joe De Sena, founder and CEO of Spartan Race.
We are talking about overcoming obstacles. The same way we teach people to get over obstacles on the course, we will teach you here on the Spartan Up podcast to get over obstacles in your mind.
We've been screaming it from the mountaintops for years. Get uncomfortable. Today, Joe talks with Michael Easter about his new book, The Comfort Crisis. Hear his take on what it means to Spartan Up, on the science behind discomfort and boredom, and a couple of adventure stories you won't want to miss.
This episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by Amazfit. From May 18th to May 31st, Spartan Up listeners can head to us.amazfit.com/pages/Spartan to save $40 on a bundle that includes the Amazfit T-Rex Pro. That's us.amazfit.com/pages/Spartan.
All right, Joe De Sena here for Spartan Up Podcast. I'm the founder and CEO, and I have Michael Easter on the horn here, and we're talking about comfort. He and I were just watching a Netflix movie. We were eating some popcorn, and we were pretty damn comfortable. What's the problem with comfort?
So I don't have a problem inherently with comfort, but I think today that we're never uncomfortable. So we've sort of built our lives to be comfortable all the time. Like you said, it's like we sit on the couch, we have this access to all this calorie-dense food. We're never really challenged. I mean, you can go through daily life today and not even take 1,000 steps, and you would live on, right? And this would have been impossible in the past. We have these adaptations that we developed over millions of years to always try and be comfortable, because in our past environments, those drives used to keep us alive. But now that we've engineered this world of just constant comfort, they're backfiring. And you can see the downsides of this. Having too much comfort or being overly comfortable too often, it's associated with, our rising rates of obesity and people being overweight. Those are like 70% now. It's associated with poor mental health outcomes. People today are spending like 95% of their time indoors. The average step count is around 4,000 steps a day. And this is radically different than we used to live. And it explains a lot of why people aren't as healthy as they used to be.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm talking to myself, talking to you, honestly, because I've been spewing this shit out for 21 years. And I tell people all day, every day, if we were living in New Delhi, if we were in India, right, we were living on top of each other, we had some tough times, or if we were living in the 1800s and walking in horse and mud every day trying to, build a railroad across the country, you and I would probably advocate for more couches and more Netflix and maybe some, healthcare. But today we've got it all. We've got everything at our fingertips, and the pendulum swung too far the other way. So it sounds like we've both picked a fight with comfortable. And I got a lot of friends that are very, very wealthy that push back, Michael. They say, that old adage, no pain, no gain. They've actually said to me, no pain, no pain. Why would I want any pain? Why would I want any discomfort? I don't get it. And it's in the numbers. I think that's what you're saying, right? It's in the numbers. When you're too comfortable, when you've got everything at your fingertips, when you never experience pain, you ultimately experience serious pain because you're up.
Exactly. And it is in the numbers. So, I started thinking about this because I worked at, I still write for them often, Men's Health for about a decade. And so I ended up writing this book, The Comfort Crisis. And look at anything that improves a human. it often requires going through discomfort. If I want to get fit, improve my fitness, that is going to be uncomfortable. Those workouts are going to suck, right? If I want to, let's say I'm overweight and I'm like, man, I need to take my health back and lose some weight, you're probably going to have to be hungry. That's uncomfortable. You know, even improving your relationships in your life often requires having conversations with people that can be uncomfortable. Like this idea, no pain, no pain, it's kind of bullshit to me. I mean, you look at how humans have improved themselves since day one, and there has always been challenge. I mean, think back even to traditional rites of passage. You know, these traditional societies would start with a younger person usually who was at, say, step 1 in their life, and they're like, we need to get this person to step 2. What did they do? They didn't just say, okay, now you're at step 2, buddy. They would send them out into the woods to go do something rather challenging, pretty epic. But along that way, in battling and having those challenges, the person would learn something about themselves, grow, become more confident, more competent, and they'd move on to that step 2 in life. I mean, you see this in, for example, the Maasai tribe. They would send young warriors out on a lion hunt. If you were able to spear a lion, then you would become a warrior. A lot of Native American tribes, similar thing. We're going to send a person out into the wild without food, water for a few days, and they're going to learn something about themselves through that challenge. I mean, these are, you know, Joseph Campbell talks about this in Hero with a Thousand Faces. Like, these myths are embedded into humanity. So if someone is saying that that's not the case, it's like, well, you're going against like millions of years of human tradition, but okay.
And evolution, but it's not just someone is saying it. You know, we've been in this business for 21 years of getting people uncomfortable, right? We get people to races in 45 countries, crawl under barbed wire, do hardship. And I've only touched, let's say, 10 million people. We've only gotten to 10 million people, and there's 7+ billion people on Earth. So most of the world, by the way, there's only a couple of 100 million gym memberships pre-COVID. Again, 7+ billion people. So most of the world doesn't embrace this idea. In today's world, they had no choice 100 years ago to embrace, right? Spear a lion, because that was just the deal, right?
Yeah.
Try getting across the country. The most basic tasks 100 years ago were fucking hard. So most people just don't embrace it. And I guess I'm psyched that you and others that I'm coming across are pushing the message too, because now we got a fighting chance.
I hope so. I mean, and I think you're right. It's, you know, when you look at a lot of people don't embrace discomfort, it's like, well, it's not shocking. It's like, well, why the fuck would you? You've got 2.5 million years of evolution telling you don't be uncomfortable. That's a dumbass idea. Your brain is screaming at you not to. So there needs to be this moment where you have this realization and tipping point that, like, oh, always leaning into comfort is causing a problem in my life, and I have to push back against that. Because if you don't, you're just going to keep slipping. And we're seeing that with what's happening in society right now. I mean, just take the epidemic of obesity. I mean, that is the number one driver of health problems, of chronic disease. It's like, people today, we might be living longer than ever on average, but are we actually living? Like, there's a difference between lifespan and health span. You know, if you really want to live a full life, you're not going to look back at your life and be like, wow, I'm so glad that I watched Netflix and ate Domino's every night. Like, you're going to look back at your life at the end of it and be like, man, I did some pretty rad shit. I did Spartan events. I climbed mountains. I did X, Y, and Z. Like, you need to reinsert these sort of metaphorical lions back in your life if you really want to live fully and be healthy as well.
Sounds too dangerous. Sounds too hard.
Well, that's because think of how safe society is as a whole right now, right? It's like, you think about young people. Helicopter parenting started in about 1990 because there was a bunch of media reports about kidnapping. And so all of a sudden, parents everywhere thought their kids were going to get kidnapped. Now, the rate of kidnapping was exceedingly low. It was just a lot of media hype. So a lot of parents stopped letting their kids go outside and, go in the woods, get dirty, get rough. And that's only increased over time, whereas now some states have had to pass what are called free-range parenting laws, because parents were literally getting arrested for letting their kids go down to the playground alone and play. So you see this idea of safety is so overwhelming now that these generations that grew up with helicopter parenting and not being able to go out and be challenged and do tough stuff, they have the highest rates of anxiety and depression and mental health issues. Because when you look at the research on bad things happening to you, challenges happening in your life. So if you have a group, you have these groups, and the people who have the absolute most challenges, just tons of bad shit has happened to them in their life. They have bad mental health outcomes. But at the same time, if you look at the people who have had no challenges in their life, those people are just as fucked up because they have no armor. They've never had anything pushed back against them. So when any sort of challenge pops up, it's like, oh my God, I don't know what to do, and they freak out. It's the people in the middle who've had sort of this sweet spot of challenges that have the best, generally they're the most mentally well. They also have lower health problems. They report going to the doctor less. They have less pain, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, we know that we need challenges and we just keep on removing the shit from our lives and we see the outcomes.
Last summer during COVID, we were on the farm where Spartan was started. And I was bored because of COVID. And so I invited a bunch of people over, young kids. And I put on the first ever Camp Spartan. We had, 35 kids. And we woke these kids up at 5 a.m. We had them in ice cold water. They might as well have joined the Navy SEALs. We tortured them and took them to the edge that you described, but made sure they didn't fall off the edge, right? You take them to the edge, you retreat a little bit. You take them to the edge, you retreat a little bit. And the kids were flipping out. They wanted to get home. Any chance? Matter of fact, one night we gave them ice cream. They hadn't seen their phones in a couple of days. We also put their phones out. We weren't anticipating the result. The kids opted for their phones over the ice cream. And ultimately, though, at the end of it, overwhelmingly, they want to come back. Because I think as scary as it is, right, as uncomfortable as it is, it feels good. You feel alive. And these were young kids that, there was nothing hiding their emotions. So, and they're going to just blurt out what it was. And so they're coming back. We're doing it again this year.
That's amazing. That's exactly what kids need. And so in reporting this book, I spent a little more than a month up in the Arctic backcountry on a backcountry hunt. So, up there it's freezing cold. We had days that were -20. Anytime we wanted anything, it took effort. Just getting water for food and to drink, we had to hike down to this stream and get it. And by the way, the stream is, where the grizzly bears also hang out. We're carrying 80-pound packs on our backs the whole time. Hungry. I was so damn hungry because we could only pack in so much food, yet we're burning 6,000 to 8,000 calories a day. Even just being in that solitude and silence of nature is uncomfortable, exposed to the elements. But what was fascinating is you would think that I would be a damn mess the whole time, that I would be just super anxious and worrisome. And the truth is that I felt more alive than I'd ever felt in my life. I also felt a lot calmer, and there are a variety of reasons for that. One is that we know that different doses of nature are great for people getting out to the wild. I'm also facing these evolutionary challenges that we used to in our past. And that seemed to trigger something inside people. And when I got back from that trip, it's man, I just felt more alive, more calm, more zen than I'd ever felt. And I had a newfound perspective on life.
Come to the edge, he said. So did you get to the edge when you were out there in the tundra?
We'll be right back to this episode, but first a little bit of information from Amazfit. Amazfit is the official partner of Spartan Race US. Amazfit has launched a new rugged outdoor sports smartwatch, the Amazfit T-Rex Pro. It's shock resistant and built to be tough from the inside out. The T-Rex Pro is an ideal companion for the Spartan race, having passed 15 military-grade tests of toughness and boasting 10 ATM water resistance. From May 18th to May 31st, Spartan Up listeners can save $40 on a bundle, which includes the Amazfit T-Rex Pro. The T-Rex Pro can measure 16 body health metrics with high accuracy. So don't forget, head to us.amazfit.com/pages/Spartan. That's us.amazfit, AMAZFIT.com/pages/Spartan.
Come to the edge, he said. So did you get to the edge when you were out there in the tundra?
We did indeed, a handful of times, but I think one time that was particularly interesting and terrifying, and it was on day one, is we're very, very intelligent men. I need you to know this, first of all. So we pitched this teepee we have on this ridge, and we think that it's going to be protected from the winds. We think the winds are going to shift in a couple days. And I'm sleeping in the teepee at night, and I wake up because I hear this pop, 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 pop. And the teepee is like shaking. The winds have changed. Now, over the next handful of hours, we start to get 70, 80 mile an hour gusts. Now, the rules of surviving in the wild, number one rule is shelter first. And here we are about to have this teepee potentially shuttled off into Russian airspace. And it became one of those moments where it's like, welcome to the Arctic. Like, holy shit, this could be bad, right? And we get all our stuff ready when the sun comes up. It's starting to come up. We sort of pack all our stuff, and we have to do this crazy emergency takedown in this hurricane force winds. Like at one point when I first opened the teepee's entrance, the wind was blowing so fast that it caught the door and it ripped up a stake and it flung it about 100 yards down the tundra. I mean, we're talking unbelievably forceful. But we managed to get it down, pack it up, get it on the other side of the ridge where there's no wind, of course. But then it was funny because, it was one of those times where it's like failure today in normal life is like your boss gives you a bad look because you misspelled a word on a slideshow, or like you were late to a meeting. Like that is failure today. Well, failure when you go outdoors and put yourself in these challenging environments can be serious. And so then when you come back into your normal life, it reframes that idea of what failure actually is. And then all of a sudden, when you make that error in the slideshow, you're just like, I don't care. This isn't a big deal, right? And so it's kind of like this reframing. And I can look back on that moment now and just sort of laugh and be like, oh, that was radical. So, for example, before I go up to Alaska, my wife and I always go to this restaurant near our home. Now, the food is fantastic. Some of the best stuff you'll ever eat. The service is absolute shit. And this would annoy me, right? I'm like, man, why can't these people get their shit together? This is unbelievable, blah, 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 blah. Well, now when I go into that restaurant, I can think back to this moment that I had where we had to hike 10 miles back to our teepee, negative 20 degree temperatures. If we hadn't made it back, we literally would have froze out there. And then we get back to the teepee, and what did I have for food? I had like a fucking protein bar, and I'm starving and I'm freezing. And I can stand in that restaurant today, warm, about to eat, smash like 1,000 calories in food. And I can think, this is not a big deal. This bull problem I have with the service here is just such a first world problem. And I can have a newfound appreciation for all these comforts that we have in life. So we never have these moments that get us out of this just overbuilt, oversoft, overly comfortable world we live in, which is freaking amazing. It is amazing. But we don't ever see that because we never get out of it, and we never really challenge ourselves. And if you don't have that, then your perspective on life is like you kind of just become an asshole who's just complaining about first world problems. So we need this stuff that just like hammers us in the face to be like, oh my God, there is hot running water coming out of a faucet right now. Like when I first got back to civilization, put my hands under hot water, I had this shit-eating grin on my face for like 20 minutes.
Same exact page. As I listen to you, I'm remembering the 20 plus years of going through those same journeys. And in doing so, I came up with a saying, which is, if you have everything, which we do, you appreciate nothing. If you have nothing, you appreciate everything. And so I went through those same exact journeys in Alaska as well and other places. And people say to me, when I get off an airplane, just last week, how was the flight? And my answer is always the same. It landed.
Yeah.
It landed. It didn't have to land. How was your day? I'm alive. Like, you know what I mean? And so if you don't go to the edge, how would you ever know? I've shaken so many hands of, Olympic wrestlers or UFC fighters, and they have really soft, humble handshakes. And in the beginning, I was confused. And then I realized, oh my God, it's because they've been beaten. They know what it's like to be on the other side. They have nothing to prove, right?
Yeah.
They've been on top. They've been on the bottom. They felt it all. There's nothing to prove. And I think the way you are, the way I was when you described your attitude in that restaurant, you got a chip on your shoulder. You never felt pain. Who the fuck are they not to deliver my food on time? Do they know who I am? I'm a writer for Men's Health, damn it. You're nobody. I'm nobody. We're nothing.
Exactly. And I think that, getting out and, having some rough and tumble moments, man, like they give you that slap in the face that you need. And you're exactly right that we don't face that, and we're facing it even less every single day because things just keep moving in a direction of everything is getting better. Now, what's fascinating is that when you ask the average person, when they do polls on this, whether they think the world is getting better, I think it's something like 6 or 12% will think the world is getting better. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, look at all this amazing stuff we have in our lives, and yet here we are saying, man, things are shitty and they're only getting shittier. It's like, we don't have this perspective. And there's a scientific reason for this. So when I had this, moment where I realized, oh man, like, why is it that first world problems are a thing? I followed up with this researcher at Harvard. He's a psychologist, and he did this study on this thing called prevalence-induced concept change. Now, the way that you can think about this is problem creep. So he found that as humans experience fewer and fewer problems like we are today, we don't actually think we have less problems. We just go out and find another problem, and that becomes our problem. But because our problems are becoming less serious, we have these hollow problems. And so this is essentially the science of first world problems. So this is like a low level feature in the human mind that in our past environments, it used to help us because we did have real problems. It was like, you can never stop gathering food or trying to hunt or trying to build shelter or thinking of the future. Like, how can I improve my life? But nowadays it just makes us finicky, and it gives us anxiety, and just causes, we're not satisfied with our lives. And this is why it's good to get out of the first world and just really like challenge yourself, because it kind of does a reframing for you.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I call it changing your frame of reference, and there's no doubt about it. It's exactly what you described. When you get back from Alaska, the hot water feels good. I disconnected the hot water heater in our house just so my family could experience that change of frame of reference every morning.
How'd that go over?
It doesn't go over well. I disconnected the elevator in our building here in the office, so everybody has to take the stairs up. It's no big deal. It's 5 floors of stairs. So I guess I hacked comfort, to make people uncomfortable, even though they weren't planning. I used to lie to people. I used to tell them that we had a barbecue on the weekend and they should come up to the farm in Vermont, only to find out that we were carrying the barbecue a half a marathon up and over a mountain. And they were the ones being barbecued. But they were always happier for it. You and I should start a rite of passage that everybody should do. First of all, I think everybody should go in the military for 1 year, no matter what your feelings are. They should have like a 1 year, just like, Israel does 2 years. We should just do 1 year, mandatory. You're 18 years old, you're going.
I don't think that, that's not a bad idea at all. It's funny. I sent the book to a buddy who was a SEAL, and he's really intellectual guy. And He does. Oh, he does all the programming for CrossFit, Dave Castro.
Yep.
And he was reading the section I have about this idea of why we need challenges, and this idea of how they're sort of embedded in human DNA, with this idea that like we separate from the comfortable world, we go into this really challenging middle ground. And by going through that, we come out a new person. And he was like, dude, I never thought about it that way, but that is exactly what Hell Week is. It's like we're literally going through hell, and when we come out the other side, we earn this stripe or this tab or whatever it is that's indicating, yes, you are a completely new person, and you are, right? So if we can, the military is a great idea in order to put that at scale. They're really the only place right now that is offering more traditional rites of passage at a grand scale. Because now for the average kid, if they don't go into the military, there's no real rites of passage. I mean, it's like the closest, I don't even know what the closest thing, like you get a driver's license, it's like you take a 30-minute test and like put your blinker on, and that's the challenge. You know, everyone gets their driver's license.
We got 1.5 million people once we get out of COVID completely here. We got 1.5 million people a year going through a Spartan or a Tough Mudder.
Mm-hmm.
It's short. It's not a year, right? It's only a day. But that's why when they come across the finish line, they're transformed. You know, one of the analogies I would use is if you want to turn iron, there's an old iron mine near our farm in Vermont. If you want to turn iron into steel, you got to heat it, pound it, and drown it.
Mm-hmm. That's
right?
Great.
And so that's really what we're talking about.
Well, yeah.
Why don't you give 3 tips? 3 tips to people listening or watching, and how they could make their life a little less comfortable.
Yeah, I think one thing that I found interesting, so in Alaska, we were hunting caribou, and you know, I'm a men's health writer. I've been thrown into some of the most extreme gyms in the country, done a lot of outdoor stuff, whatever. So at the end of the day, I'm a gangly rider, but I'm a relatively fit gangly rider. But after killing caribou and packing it out, it was 100 pounds, 5 miles across the tundra, which is terrible to walk on, all uphill. I got really interested in the idea of carrying and human evolution. And, you know, we really focus on, humans evolved to run, which we did. But after we would do a persistence hunt, kill the animal, we'd have to carry it back to camp. So it turns out that humans, as we evolved, did even more carrying. And we've really engineered it out of our days, but it's uniquely beneficial for our health and fitness. So then I met with some special forces soldiers who have teamed up with Mayo Clinic doctors. And so they're trying to put carrying at scale through rucking. So I think that rucking is a really great way to improve your cardiovascular health, which is associated with all kinds of better health outcomes, and also add some muscle to your frame in the sense that like you're also strength training while you're doing it. You're sort of tapping into this this activity we used to do as we evolved. Number 2, which we've hit on a million times, do hard shit. I talk about this idea of misogi in the book, and the rules are very simple. 1, make it really hard. 2, don't die. Pick some fucking hard, radical challenge once a day. Don't even train for it. Go out and do it. And also, you don't have to Instagram the hell out of it. You don't have to boast and brag about it. Do it for yourself. You know, today we do so many things just because we want some likes on Instagram. Like, this is for you to learn about yourself. I think Spartan is a hell of a way to do that. I mean, you guys are doing some amazing things. And number 3, a little bit of a left field, but get bored once in a while. So part of hunting is when you're sitting on those hills waiting for caribou to move through, you're sitting on your ass just kind of being bored. And I'll tell you what, I didn't have service for 100 miles up there on the tundra. I also didn't have books. I didn't have magazines. All of a sudden it was like, oh, this is what boredom feels like. Because nowadays, anytime we're bored, we reflexively pull out our cell phone, or we turn on Netflix, or we turn on a TV. So there's all these messages today that are like, you got to use your cell phone less. But so many people, when they do that, they just go on a computer or TV, where your brain doesn't know the damn difference. And we're engaging with 11 hours of media a day. And this is associated with a lot of burnout and mental health problems, while boredom, on the other hand, is this evolutionary discomfort that revives our brain, and it also tells us to do something and think differently. So it's associated with improved mental health outcomes. It's associated with creativity. It's associated with all these good things, and we've killed it off. So find a way to rediscover boredom. And then I'm going to add a fourth one just because why not go overkill? Get outside more. There's specific doses of nature that are uniquely good for humans. I won't go through them all, but my favorite one is what's called the 3-day effect. The research shows that after being in the backcountry for 3 or more days, without electronics, mind you, your brain starts writing what are called alpha waves. Now, these are the waves that are found in experienced meditators. They improve your calmness, your sense of self. So just hanging out in the woods on a camping backpacking trip for 3 days is like going to a meditation retreat, except you've got no gurus, there are no fees, there are no odd chanting and incense, and it's a hell of a way to feel better.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to incorporate a bunch of this into the kids' camp this summer. They're going to be in the backcountry for many, many days, beyond 3 days. They're going to have I'm going to create a boring section, maybe 1 hour a day where they just get bored. I remember when I used to get bored. You used to get bored as a kid. You go build something, you create something, you go tap on the door of your friend's house and get stuff happening.
Exactly. And now we have this, I mean, boredom is an evolutionary discomfort that told us to go do something. But now that something is these phones. That's not really adding much to people's life. Like no one goes on their phone and is like, I'm bored. I think I'm going to read a literary classic, or I'm going to, wire some money to widows and orphans. Like no one does that. It's like, I'm going to go on Instagram and just watch some bullshit, which, don't get me wrong, Instagram has good stuff and it's great, but that can't be all you're doing with your time, which is increasingly what people are doing. Human potential is like this big, big circle around us. And because of the way we live now, most people sort of live in this dinner plate sized circle right in the middle of that. And by not going out to the edges, you miss so much and you don't know what you're truly capable of. Because the reality is that people are way more capable of anything they think they imagine. I mean, our past lives, we used to do hard shit all the time. We are unbelievably fit. We had to survive and challenge ourselves. And now people are often, a lot of people are scared to go out on a hike and that sort of stuff. It's like, man, that's how we used to live for 2.5 million years. You can do whatever the hell you want. You just got to go out and do it.
Got to go do hard shit. That's my saying. Go do hard shit. Nike missed a few words, right? They say just do it. We say go do hard shit.
I like it. Let's put it on a t-shirt, man.
All right, you're awesome. Marion, you good?
Thanks for listening to this episode of Spartan Up Podcast. Spartan Up is your partner in resilience for mind, body, and spirit. We're here 3 days every week. Tuesdays, you can find Joe De Sena, founder and CEO of Spartan, interviewing biohackers, business leaders, authors, and athletes. Thursdays and Saturdays, catch episodes from our DECA, Endurance, Trail, Combat, and La Ruta series. Do you know someone who needs a little nudge? Maybe they could use some motivation, tactics to be stronger, healthier, happier, more successful. Tell them about our show. And if you're watching on YouTube, leave us a comment. We want to know who's watching and who's listening. Thanks. See you next time. This episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by Amazfit. From May 18th to May 31st, Spartan Up listeners can head to us.amazfit.com/pages/Spartan to save $40 on a bundle that includes the Amazfit T-Rex Pro. That's us.amazfit.com/pages/Spartan.